Good morning and welcome to the Curdled Milk podcast. Today I have Beth Ellis from the Stevens Center. We just took a tour and Beth is volunteer supervisor, is that right?
Yes.
And we just had an amazing tour throughout the facility. There were a few tears. We got to meet some wonderful people along the way. But the point of this podcast is to really develop some awareness for this wonderful facility. I'm embarrassed to say that after we toured, I don't know why I didn't know about the existence of this facility, but I didn't. And I've got to believe that there's a lot of people listening in our community that have not heard of it either. And so I think it's important to bring awareness to the good works that you do here. And as people know that listen to my podcast, we are about inspiration and empowerment and finding a way to ask for what we need and what we want. And I'm quite certain that the Stevens Center is always in need of people, services, materials, products, and well wishes along the way. So Beth, welcome. So appreciative of our time today, and thank you so much for the tour. I want to start with, out here in the hallway, you gave us a glimpse into the history. Can you tell, it's fascinating to me, and it's such a neat story how this came to be, and not that long ago. Can you refresh that story for us?
I can, yes. So 1984, Stevens Center was founded by Dick and Sharon McNeil. They had seen such a need in the community for homeless services right here in South Omaha, and a gentleman had started a dumpster on fire right in the back alley, and to stay warm that night, and he lost his life. And so they had purchased this little pool hall. We used to, just be a really small little pool hall.
Sure.
They purchased that pool hall, and they reached out to the community and their 10 children. And people just started to show up. They started to provide, they were able to, have all those tangible items that they truly needed. And then just several years later, they recognized a huge need in our community for substance abuse treatment. They had recognized that not only do these men need emergency shelter and those tangible items, but they also needed treatment as well. And so we formed our HERO program, which is a dual diagnosis substance treatment center. Both men and women, and we also provide services for the community. So
you have 3 programs here.
3 programs.
3 levels.
3 levels.
So kind of explain each program to us.
So we have emergency shelter, homeless emergency shelter, and so we're able to house on average about 78 homeless people experiencing homelessness each night. So one of the things that makes us unique from all the other shelters in the community is we are a recovery housing program. So people have to be able to be sober in order to receive our services. Why am I so nervous?
It's okay. It's all right. People are nervous. It's okay.
That out. Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's authentic, remember?
I know.
It's okay. We're just going to talk.
Yes. And so people show up for those services here, whether they're experiencing homelessness in our community or whether they need the recovery component. And so they come into the shelter and we assess them. We get them to a doctor. We get them to our nurse, assess all of the things that they're, experiencing. And then we get them over to the treatment center if that's what they need. If they need substance abuse treatment, we are going to send them over to the HERO program and get them those services free of charge, which is incredible.
Absolutely.
And so we also have a housing component, permanent supportive housing, and we have 63 units upstairs. And so they are permanent supportive housing. However, what we like to do is we like to set them with case management, create goals in that first year so that they can then go out into the community and sustain their own housing outside of the Stevens Center.
Sure. I'm sure that's always the goal. As we were walking around and when we went into the women's dormitory area, I got teary just because you were telling the story about how other homeless shelters look and feel. And you were clear to make sure that the philosophy here was going to be different. And I could just tell that there was so much humanity in that room. I think people have still today in 2021 a misunderstanding and a stigma maybe attached to mental health, attached to homelessness. I know that the Stevens Center has played a very important role for you personally.
Yes.
Please tell me your story and why this place is so special in your heart.
Sure. So I came to the Stevens Center January 11th of 2010. I did not come because I wanted the services. I'd come because I had lost my 3 kids to the state of Nebraska from my addictions, from domestic violence, from my alcoholism, and I had jumped from a truck on the interstate to end my life. And I wasn't ready to really face that I needed help. I wasn't ready to surrender. It all seemed so difficult and complex and hard for me to be able to walk into a facility and start doing things somebody else's way. I was almost 32 when I got here. I thought that I knew what life was about. I come from a family where addiction runs wild, from grandparents to my 8 aunts and uncles.
When you
to
say
cousins,
addiction, alcoholism?
Alcoholism and meth use.
Okay.
And so it was a norm for me. It was really the way, I was raised. I didn't see anything wrong with the behaviors that I had. I didn't know any different,
Sure.
And so walking in here that day took a lot of surrender.
Did you walk in here by yourself?
I did walk in here by myself. It was probably one of the scariest days of my life.
Why did you walk in here by yourself? What was it, as you look back and have some hindsight?
Yeah.
Why do you think that day was different? Why do you think you walked in here?
I can tell you the exact moment that things changed. And it was the morning of January 11th, and I was in court, and it was for my juvenile case. And the judge had read my children's results of their drug testing when they had removed them. And I heard him say the levels of methamphetamine that were in my 3 kids.
How old were your children?
My son was 9 and my daughters were 3 and 2. And that was the last thing that I had needed to hear. That was the last time I had gotten high.
At that moment, you became fully immersed into being a mom.
I did. I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn, which is where Stevens Center comes in. And they still come in 11 years later.
Yeah. So you walked in here. So walk us through a little bit about your experience and what you learned and how it impacted you.
Sure. So I got here. I was still, on drugs. I was still, not thinking very clearly. In fact, it took me probably 3 to 4 months just for that fuzziness to really go away. I was not honest when I got here. I was never honest before I got here. I wasn't a good person. I didn't have values or morals. Really, my addiction had taken all of that from me. And so when I got here, it was actually a very short time. And I started to just see more clearly that when I get honest and I start to tell the truth, that good things just start to happen. And so I started to do that more than not. Probably my first, real ever peak of authenticity ever. I was in a safe spot for the very first time in my life to share who I truly was. And that's what started to create the healing process for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So lots of day programming. You're in groups all day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You're learning about your substance abuse. I was diagnosed with bipolar when I jumped from the truck in the hospital and got medicated for that. I had walked through life with so many highs and lows and didn't really know, what that was.
Right.
And so when I got here,
I didn't get the help that you needed.
No. And so I 11 years later, I still take medication once a day. It's given me stability, mood stability. And that in itself was another barrier that I had to push past, was having a label, and it's not a label. My chemistry is just different than some,
Absolutely.
And I found a solution. And so I want to continue to, do the same thing that I found works.
I think you hit on something just really important. It's, as I mentioned before, addiction, mental health. I mean, we've got to get past the stigmas that are attached to it. It's no different than having diabetes or high blood pressure or some other situation that is in our bodies that we can't control, nor should we try, without the benefit of medications or therapies or whatever that looks like. And what might be the right response for you might not be for someone else.
Sure.
I mean, you are an individual. How has 2020 changed this place? How did you see, because of the pandemic, did you see a rise in people needing help? And if so, what does that look like?
We did. Yes, 2020, wow, just a very difficult year for everyone, not just in the homeless community, but all over the world.
Right.
I was the shelter director during 2020 when the pandemic hit. And because, 46% of those we serve suffer with mental health, it was a really difficult time. 50% of the people we serve suffer with substance abuse. So relapse, was higher at that time. People didn't really know what to do with their emotions. We had people, coming back from the community intoxicated, and so partnering with the community to get them the help they need to get them back here safe. It was very, very challenging. Just recreating our programming and our policies and the way that we were doing things and trying to continue to serve the amount of people that we were one time serving in a way to keep them safe. It was also difficult at the beginning. I look back now, and we truly became COVID experts, in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And we have such an awesome team of leadership here that it was a beautiful picture. It was a beautiful thing to be a part of, to be able to collaborate with the other leaders, the other directors in the agency, and pull together and give each other the support that we needed, because we were so vulnerable during that time. We felt accountable for, people coming in and testing positive for COVID. We felt accountable for keeping, everybody in that dorm safe amongst each other. And so very trying time. But as I look back today, and we know so much more about COVID, it's a sigh of relief that we have done incredibly well. I think our numbers are 24 people have been confirmed positive since 2020. And so with us serving 1,287 people last year, 24 of those, our numbers are fascinating.
Absolutely.
Lots and lots of hard work, not just leadership, but all the way down. Our frontline staff, they were the ones suiting up and taking care of those people that were testing positive and feeding them and giving them medication and making sure that their needs were met while they were in isolation. It's a family culture here. There's a lot of love. Lots of us have been here for a long time, several years in leadership. And so I think that we have a great way of knowing when one of our peers are struggling, and a great way of, lifting them up and empowering them.
What does your life look like now? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I have, since June of 2011, I've been employed with the Stevens Center. So I started at the thrift store a year after I became sober. And from there, I went to the HERO program and worked as an RA while I put myself back through college, which I can't even believe, I was capable of doing that, Since then, I came transferred on this side to the shelter director. I was down there for 5 years, and I've recently transferred over to the volunteer coordinator, which I just love because I get to meet fascinating people and I get to share all of the goodness about what we do here, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So back in college, at 42 years old, I understand why God's plan is like marriage and all of that adult stuff before before children. I did things quite backwards, but
oh, that's all right. Most of us do.
Yeah, but I mean, life is so good today. 11 years sober, and to be able to share my story with those that are just hopeless, gives a lot of people hope.
Yeah. So we met Robert.
Yes.
Downstairs in the kitchen.
Yes.
And his background, he used to be at the French Cafe, which I miss, by the way. It was a long-standing tradition in the old market here in Omaha. And he's very willing to share his story. And I can't imagine how powerful it is for your residents to be able to interact daily with people who know exactly what it's like to have walked in their shoes and to understand firsthand what they're struggling with, whether it be homelessness or addiction or depression or mental health issues. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say is the biggest need, ongoing need of the Stevens Center?
The biggest ongoing need, not only, that's such a hard question because I can see it from so many different points of view. So we need the community. We need people. We need people here. We need people with compassion to work on the front lines with those experiencing homelessness as they come in the front doors, on the worst day of their life. But we also need hygiene. We need sheets and towels and blankets and ways to show them love in a tangible way when they, crawl from underneath the bridge and enter the shelter. We need clothing and, household goods so that when they work so hard and we celebrate them, getting the keys to their new home or signing the lease to their new home, we're able to help furnish that apartment for them or that home for them. And so I can't think of one basic need. There's so many things that go into all of it, to make things work. And so it's people, and it's household goods, and it's time, and it's compassion, and it's awareness.
Yeah.
And so people like you, interested in showing up.
What is it, the one thing that you wish more people knew or understood?
The stereotype around homelessness, and why don't they just go get a job? And to be on the front lines for 5 years and see the people that walk through here, possible for them to just go get a job. Is it possible to meet their basic needs and get them to a doctor? A lot of people come in here and they experience physical pain. Well, we all know what it feels like to have physical pain. And the one thing that's on your mind is not going out to put in job applications and, seek out a bus trip across town that may or may not, last 2 to 3 hours of your day. And that goes for mental health as well. You can't focus on, you can't even focus on hygiene at sometimes with mental health or depression. And so my answer to that would be the stigma. There are lots and lots of organizations and resources in our community that work tireless hours to help the people, make it to the next level, whatever that is for them. But to stop the stigma of they just need to get a job. There are probably people, out there, but if we're gonna say that substance abuse is a disease, just like physical and mental health, then we have to stop stereotyping these people, and we just have to start walking up alongside of them,
Well, I think I say this all the time, but I think there's far more that connects us than separates us. And there are many people walking around that are one day away from
Yes.
from falling,
Mm-hmm.
one day away from not being able to pay their rent. Especially we've seen, because of the pandemic, people going along, living their normal lives, and everything coming to a crashing halt through no fault
Mm-hmm.
of their own. And if anything, I hope that has helped people to be more empathetic and to understand that there are circumstances afoot, and sometimes it doesn't matter what you want.
Right.
But what exists has to be dealt with. Did you happen to see the interview last night with Prince Harry and Meghan?
I
with
did not.
Oprah? It was, if you can on demand it, I highly recommend it. It was riveting to me. In that interview, she literally admitted that the hardest day of her life was saying out loud to her husband, and I'm going to quote her, "I don't think I want to be alive anymore."
Mm.
And she, you think about a woman who is like that.
Wow.
She's living this royal life. We can't even imagine what that must be like.
Right.
She has everything afforded to her, not to mention the fairy tale prince. I mean, it's
Right.
hello. And this all happened while she was pregnant with Archie.
Okay.
But it was it was riveting, because one of the things that she said was, she reminded us that we don't always know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And if we don't ask, she was brave enough to ask for help, and no one in her community would help her. They basically said no.
Wow.
She could not she wanted to go to a facility. And as she mentioned, it's not like when you're at the palace, you can call an Uber
Right.
and say, take me to, the hospital. That doesn't happen. That's going to look poorly upon the institution. And so, she and her husband had to make some very difficult decisions. And in the process, he was very forthcoming about saying that he was cut off financially. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, because here is a talented, educated person, they both are, and very capable of going out and pursuing work and being adequately paid for that. But since they were in the royal community, there's such a thing as security, and there's such a thing as safety.
Right.
And that was cut off as well. So they had to make some decisions about what to do and where to go. And they were left without any familial or professional support. And it was, but I think one of the things that might come out of that's positive is, if it can happen to her.
Right. Right.
Right? Because she would be the person that, we would look at and say, what problems does she possibly have?
Sure.
But she lived in a world that not many of us can understand. And we all live in a world that sometimes no one else can understand.
Right.
And you have that story.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you are most proudest of at the Stevens Center?
I'd say the love. And that's never wavered. And there's just a way that people are engaged when they walk in. There's a way that we encounter people, lack of judgment, compassion. and just the culture. It's just such a loving culture. You know, we truly serve some of the most vulnerable people in our community, and to be able to walk around and sing with them and laugh with them, it's just the greatest feeling. You know, you hear laughter all through the building all day long, and it's just like, you know, I'm used to it now, and you know, just for an outsider, you know, if they're walking through or if they're touring, and to be able to see that laughter and how, you know, these people who are at their bottom, you know, they're in immediate crisis, can find the goodness, you know, in what we offer. That's probably the most important to me. That's truly what captured me. The love that I received when I got here enabled me to receive the services in a different way. You know, I could have received them and then just left and, you know, never really showed back up. But it was truly the first act of love that I had ever, you know, been given in a way that is a little bit more normal.
Sure.
You know, if you will. But I'd say the love and the culture, the environment, it's a really friendly place, you know.
Yeah.
I just like Robert, you know, Chef Robert said, there's not a day that I don't
love coming to work.
I love coming to work.
And I could see that in his eyes.
Yes. It's so real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Very genuine. Very genuine. And the metal music in the kitchen has got to make all the difference in the world in the outcome of the food quality.
It does, and all the difference in the volunteers and the groups that come in. You know,
one of the things that I noticed as we toured is how clean and organized everything is.
Yes,
there's a dedication to that. Talk to me about what happens with children while they're here.
Yes, so we partner with Completely Kids. There's a classroom in our building, and so Completely Kids is a OPS program, an after-school program. And so we have 2 teachers that come here faithfully Monday through Friday from 4 to 6. They're spending a lot of time with our kiddos, lots of life skills. It's not just classroom style stuff, if you will. It's more therapeutic. You know, they know the situation these kiddos are in. They, you know, they build relationship, and what we know about building relationship, vulnerability gets to take place, transparency. These kiddos, lots of times, they, you know, they don't have filters. They just start to share, and it creates such a goodness about that program. You know, that program is our kids' safety net when they get here. In the summer, they take them to their facility from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, so that the parents can truly, you know, reach their goals. You know, break the barriers that they have while they're here. And so that program is just incredible. The kiddos, generally the families are staying anywhere from probably 3 to 4 months. We are at a 98% rate for housing families. And so 98% of those we serve in 2020 of families went to their own homes into the community.
That's
and
amazing.
So it's unbelievable.
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable. You know, and it's not just maybe that one case manager that worked with them. It's the entire shelter celebrating that with that family. You know, we have a bell that we ring when people get housed, and so that bell rang quite a bit in 2020, and it's just, you know, just another part of our culture and in a way that we can celebrate success.
Is there a follow-up after people leave?
So there is. It's not really formalized. It's something that we're really working on. We've been able to start tracking recidivism and who's returning and why they're returning, things like that. All clients that we serve know that they can show up at the front door. They can call to receive more services. We have more call than not once they're out there in the community. One of our overall goals is, while they're here, is to help get them those community supports, so that when they get out there, you know, they're going to be able to maintain their homes in positive ways. But we do not definitely shut the door to them returning for more services. And so hoping, you know, by 2022, maybe that's all formalized and we have aftercare in the home. You know, that's one of my visions, because life still happens, as we all know, whether we're sober or we're, in a new home or not. Life's still going to happen, and
Absolutely.
it can kick us back. And so,
well, and there's just that ongoing coping.
yes,
And as they develop new skills here, it's just making sure those refreshers and
Yes.
being able to maintain, I would think, are vital.
for sure.
If someone is listening to this and wants to know more, wants to reach out, wants to help, what should they do?
If somebody's listening who wants to reach out, help, wants to know more, they can absolutely email me.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your email?
It's beth.robbins@stevenscenter.org.
Okay.
So beth.robbins @stevenscenter, STEPHENCENTER.org.
Okay, perfect. And now, you mentioned you got married 2 years ago.
I did get married 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I fell in love with a biker. He's Harley.
Okay.
22 years sober.
Nice.
Yes, and so Stevens Center is actually having their first annual coffee poker run this June, which is really, really cool too. And so if people want to get their bikes out, there's more to come on that.
Yeah. So if people want to volunteer, I imagine there's many areas that they can do that.
Many areas.
When we were downstairs, Fran's Diner.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. I thought that was such a heartwarming.
Yes, so Fran was a long-term volunteer. She had showed up in 1984 when the mission had formed. Fran cooked in the kitchen weekly, and I think even sometimes a few times a week at the beginning. Her specialty was spaghetti, and Fran actually cooked for us until she was 99 years old, and I think she was... I think it was 4 months before she passed was the last time that she was down here cooking in the kitchen.
Wow.
She has poured into our mission, given back in just phenomenal ways. We don't have an actual track of the volunteer hours that she's been at Stevens Center, but I can imagine they far exceed just anybody, because she was such a vital role in the Stevens Center.
Yeah.
And so we decided that we would name our diner after Fran in her honor. Beautiful little place. It feels just really homey.
It does.
It
does.
Her name is lit up in neon lights down there.
I loved it. Feels kind of like an old-fashioned diner.
It does.
Right?
Yeah. It's beautiful. So.
I hope Robert knows how to do malts. I mean, I'm just saying, I think malts are in order.
You know what? I'm sure he does know how, but I don't think we've had malt night.
Oh, I think you should start malt night.
I mean,
summer
should.
is coming.
Yes, we have root beer float night. We have lots of groups that come in and do activities, bingo games, family game night. So they bring their children, they engage with people, in our programs. We have lots of groups from different colleges that come in. They do knitting classes or tie blankets, arts and crafts. And so we have lots and lots of people that show up and want to, help just be creative and bring things to the center that staff, don't really have a lot of time to bring.
Yeah,
So,
of course, you're busy.
yeah.
Well, on my website too, rjhesselgesser.com, you can find a link to reach out to Beth. I'll make sure that that's there. And we are also putting together an auction. As you might know, I am an artist and do large custom paintings, and I have offered up a painting to go on auction with the proceeds coming here to be of some help in some way.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So you can find out more about that on my website as well. But in the meantime, if you aren't familiar with the Stevens Center, you will do tours, you will tell people what they want to know, and you will give people direction if they want to help in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
If somebody is listening to this and is struggling with a mental health issue, struggling with anything that, drugs or alcohol, and doesn't know where to turn, doesn't know what to do, what should they do?
They should call. They should call our number, 402-731-0238. They would probably have to share just a little bit about what's going on so that we know where to transfer them to get them the best help that we can offer for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that calling is sometimes very, very hard, but if you want change, you have to take that step.
Yep. Yep. And sometimes it's just that step and that humanity on the other end of the phone that can lead you to the next step. And all they have to worry about is one step at a time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Beth, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much we enjoyed the tour. You have a very loving and powerful and inspiring story yourself. And it meant a lot to us to be able to see the facility and sit down with you today and learn more about what you do here and why it means so much to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Again, you can reach out to me on my website, rjhesselgesser.com. My name is Robin Hesselgesser, authentically enriching and empowering lives.